Welcome to Babblecom 5.
Hi, so this is my introduction for Thirdspace, and this is a nice box that it comes in. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about the Babylon 5 movies in context, because I've already watched this through, but with the commentary on, which was quite interesting. The various films were filmed because TNT wanted to make it more of a sort of an overall, sort of package for the series, basically, and to introduce people to the series as well, because they only just got control of it. So they positioned it in such a way that these films were actually made slightly after the end of the series, but they fit into the series at different points chronologically. So in doing Thirdspace now, I'm trying to do it at the right time for you if you're on a run through the series, because it comes smack bang in the middle of season 4, after the Shadow War, but before other things start happening. Obviously, I'm trying to avoid spoilers. And so, as a result, things like Zach being chief of security has just happened in this series, and you'll see he's referred to that in the film that I'm about to synopsize for you. So I'm not going to stay as a talking head on this one, because I don't tend to do that, but I'm doing this as a bit of an intro, just because, really. So this was, I'm just looking at the details. So Thirdspace was actually the second TNT film to be done in 1998. The first was In the Beginning. Now, I haven't done In the Beginning yet because I could probably safely do it now, if I'm perfectly honest, because it refers in part to events in War Without End, which obviously we're well through now. We've also finished the Shadow War, but yeah, I don't know. Those of you who know what I'm talking about, let me know if you think this is an appropriate time to do it, because I'd value your input on that. But Thirdspace is quite safe to do now, because this is exactly where it's supposed to fall chronologically. We've also then got there's River of Souls and The Call to Arms, which were also produced, but they come after the 5th season. So there's no point in me doing those now, because they would be out of context for you at this point. Okay. In terms of other films, those were the only films that were done at that particular sort of time. There's also Legend of the Rangers, which comes in 2002, and then there's also The Lost Tales, which came out in 2007, strangely. And I know that seems odd, but that was it's a misnomer to call it a film. It was a couple of slightly extended episodes, basically, that were done with sort of very, quite very modern abilities, but on a very low budget, in the sense that they were testing the water, I think. And I think they did quite well on DVD sales, but they didn't go beyond that. So although they do officially extend the universe, they never really had legs, unfortunately. So they just stopped there. So this is I say it's the first one, as you can see there. It's the first of these, this particular sort of box set that I have. The two being The River of Souls and The Call to Arms. The commentary is quite interesting, actually, and the DVDs are well worth having for the commentaries, it has to be said. You can probably find them on YouTube these days, I imagine. But it's nice to be able to watch them simultaneously with the film, obviously. And, they mention things like the fact that there's quite a lot of exposition in Thirdspace, in case it's the first film, the first time you've been introduced to Babylon 5 universe. So there's more talking than you might imagine there would be, just to make sure that if everyone's coming to it cold, they know what's going on roughly. And it also involves sort of designs done by someone outside the normal scope of the show. So some of the alien designs and so on were intended to reference Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos, and so if you're sort of familiar with that as a concept, then that's the sort of thing you're going to see in this particular film. So it is interesting because knowing now that it was filmed that much later on, I think that some of the effects were sort of toned down a little bit compared to some of the comments I've been making of late, of there just been too much going on. So that it's actually quite interesting thinking about it now, because it does mean that it was done at a time when they'd had more time to reflect, maybe. Still Meta Digital doing it. And they obviously had a sort of a good run at these in terms of being able to sort of do a lot of them sort of sequentially. But it's always just nice to hear the actors speaking about how fondly they remember it and how much fun they had on set doing it as well, and just all the sort of various ins and outs and all that sort of good stuff. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to revert back to my normal sort of slideshow routine, but I am going to just commentate on this one sort of straight out of the box, so to speak. I'm not going to do a full script, and I'll just sort of explain stuff and comment on stuff as I go, a bit like I did with The Gathering, basically. Just because it's a lot to try and type for 1.5 hours straight to keep up with it all. It takes me quite a long time to do each individual episode, so I think this is the best approach to the films. So with that, I will stop this here, and we'll get into Thirdspace. Cheers for now. It was TNT, see? The Year Between Wars. A bit of an Earth presidential recap. So the station is under quarantine. It's actually got a built-in synopsis. And every expense spared on the title page there. This is almost back to season 1. So the Raiders are suddenly back, with Star Furies engaging. Everyone in command of the Furies. Interesting, she says Fox 2. First time I've ever seen Star Furies using missiles by declaration. You can actually see they're packing. Interesting conversation between Ivanova and the leader of the Raiders. They're after strontium-40 on the transport. Very, very valuable. Yeah. Backups to hand. Raider mothership coming in. Ivanova's also got backup. White stars. Lots of them. Yeah, you're stuffed, dude. Bye-bye. Sheridan's giving them a chance to surrender and be boarded. They've been taken to a penal colony on the Drazi freehold, which is interesting. It's very interesting. It's reminiscent of Signs and Portents, because it's just been a mouse trap again to pull in the Raider capital ship, which will slow them down a lot in the future. There's quite an action-packed opening, but it is very reminiscent of things that have been done in the past. So these two are brothers, and apparently they were comedians in real life as well. They are quite funny together, and they're allowing themselves to be scanned to sort out a little family feud. She's basically being a telepathic lie detector for them. So one thinks the other was having an affair with their wife, basically. And this guy's terminal, apparently. There go the eyebrows. But Lita's clearly picking up on something much worse at the moment. So this guy lost his wife by accusing him of being with his wife, and she wasn't. It's quite interesting, because we haven't seen Lita doing normal telepathic work up until this point. So the Furies have spotted something off the beacon now. It's Delta Squadron. So Ivanova's mentioning that it's nearly as big as an explorer ship, whatever it is. So there are no reports of any missing ships, so it's a mystery, basically. And she's checked with Babylon 5. So they're doing what they did with the Cortez, the explorer ship, in Season 2. They're going to leave one Star Fury as an anchor, and the others will gradually stretch out from there and try and reach the target, because going off beacon is generally a deeply bad idea in hyperspace. So one of the Furies suggests it might be a first contact because they can't identify the silhouette. There she blows. Corwin's asking Ivanova how many Star Furies she wants for the salvage operation. She says, all of them, plus some white stars. Ideally. So actually, they're stretching the jump gate stanchions apart so they can actually get it in. The Star Furies are on full burn trying to pull it. There's actually some transport ships in there as well, even a cargo vessel. And one of us, Lita's watching rather. That's a Precary, I think. He's seen better days. And so is everybody else, apparently. And that's Lita having seen better days as well, but still on her feet, unlike everyone else. Foreshadowing. Can't actually see any white stars pulling it. So Veer's asking on behalf of the League if they know what the artifact is, basically, and Sheridan doesn't know. Don't know what it does, just that it's probably very old. It's odd that the Centauri is speaking on behalf of the League of Non-Aligned Worlds, but Glenn's pointing out that they haven't got any real expertise or equipment to actually analyse it, whereas the other worlds might have. Glenn's basically accusing Sheridan of getting little lights in his eyes that say mine whenever something unusual appears on his doorstep. Possibly fair. And then he decides that it is his. Tish. That's a sort of Starfree worker bee type variant. Helpfully painted in bright yellow. Here's Zack in a Fury, which is unusual for him. It's big. Explorer vessel big. Which is big. Zack thinks he can see signs of weapons fire against it. Poor little mate bot getting sent in to scrape something off the hull of it. Yeah, let's use a beam laser on it, that'll help. And the mate bot's dead. Mate bot's been sucked dry of power. Not good. They can't even recharge it now. So the Furies were okay because they were using grapples. They weren't close enough to be affected, the engineer thinks. And then they get a visit from an IPX ship, Interplanetary Expeditions. And as Zack says, they have ears everywhere and they're very interested in everything that's unusual. And apparently they don't care about the Earth quarantine either. Otherwise they wouldn't even be there. New faces. This will be them. There is danger. This leads her over and over and over again. She's actually saying there is danger, remember. I think she's got a PPG in her hand as well. That's a cool model. I want that model. Probably on eBay somewhere. Or has been. Dr. Elizabeth Trent. Apparently IPX is a special case when it comes to the embargo. This is why they're here. As Sheridan says, they're horse trading. So interestingly, it turns out that IPX basically have free reign in terms of where they can travel because they've got a lot of business arrangements with different planetary bodies and people, basically. Looks like Sheridan's going to get the supplies he's asked for because it's just been carbon dated to over 1 million years old. So IPX, as they can evade the embargo effectively, they can become a supply chain for the station. Nice. Ivonova is sorely tempted to throw several of the IPX people out of the airlock. And she's not impressed by the sheer craziness that's happening around her. Franklin's not helping, likening them to worker ants. Meanwhile, back at the alien artifact. Yes, clearly Lita is not happy, we get it. Ooh, that's a lot of writing, apparently. And now she's awake. She's mouthing something, but nothing's coming out. Lita hasn't said a word. And Zack just asked her out. Bless him. She's still just mouthing away, saying nothing at all. Bless him. He's liked it ever since she's been here. Oh, he's nuts about her. He knows he hasn't really got a cat in hell's chance, but he's trying. Still got nothing. Bless him. On the commentary, Patricia Tillman was saying she just focused on everything else that she possibly could, apart from what he was saying, so she didn't react. So he's basically taking her silence as the fact that she doesn't want to do anything, but that's not really the case, necessarily. He just is clearly preoccupied heavily. Bless him. I think they had to put this in for padding or something, apparently, because they were short. Yep, we've all been there, Zack. Maybe not quite to that extent, but it's like the power loader of Babylon 5, this little Fury. Main bots, all of the main bots from the looks of it, on a collision course. That's not good. Whoosh. Charge of the maintenance bots with sharp pointy claws. Furies are rolling in. Zach's on his way to maintenance to try and find out what happened to the mate bots. Man down. Going in subtle. Lita's been a naughty girl. She's just saying that we have to stop it. And she's gone night-night. No one's laid a hand on her mind. She can't remember anything since yesterday afternoon, apparently. She's denying all knowledge of what happened, basically. She's even denying a possibility that Franklin's giving her that she could have sleepwalked, because telepaths can accidentally do that. Interesting. Yeah, Lita knows that she's being watched. The doctor says to switch to the alternate camera because they don't think she can do it. As soon as they do, she looks at it. So the doctor reckons only a P9 should be able to do that, but Lita is technically a P5. And here we get a bit of exposition about the fact that she knows that Lita's been to the Vorlon homeworld for an upgrade. Apparently IPX tracks all the ships that head towards Vorlon space, which just makes perfect sense. Now we get a bit of Lita backstory. We've heard her mention this very briefly, but we've never seen detail of it, which is interesting. This is the period when she was on the run from Psycor. So Lita basically pitched a life pod, went into Vorlon space. The guy who she hired left, and then the Vorlons moved in, possibly because they were waiting for him to go. So the doctor's hypothesis is that because the Vorlons don't like people getting hands on advanced technology, if she's still under their influence, she may be acting under that command without her realising that she's doing it. if one was trying to put Dr. Trent back in her box. They're getting on like a house on fire. See, these Starfuries are just a bit too zippy for me. They didn't used to be quite so zippy in the old days. Oh yeah, let's light it up. With lots of power next to it. Excellent. So they're trying to scan inside it. Yep. And lights on the structure itself lighting up. This guy's twitching all over the place. Oh, hello. Like a blue version of hyperspace. Scary background music. And the green thing. He's now getting frenzied about what he's seen. He says it can see them. It knows that they're there. And other people are walking towards him in a dazed state. Exposition. Jump gates were given to them by the Centauri 100 years ago. So it's not a ship, it's a mechanism. So I think the implication is that she thinks it's something similar to a jump gate, but something massively different, and they've got to hurry before anyone else can do something with it. She thinks it could change everything. So security is running out of space to house people because things are kicking off everywhere, basically. So the Narn is clearly still on security. So Zach wants an analysis done of what people are saying basically for the next 10 hours to try and figure out if there's any connection between all the strange activity that's going on. Which is very sensible. This guy we've seen before. I think he was in the Grail episode. I'll remember his name in a minute. So he's seeing the visions as well. He's saying it's beautiful. Wind in one of his quarters. That seems unlikely in space. Not often we see her out of uniform, so to speak. That's right, you blinked, you missed it. Now she's fully in uniform. She's also seeing the city. As is someone else. Hello, Veer. He's saying it's beautiful as well. Veer saying that he wants to be there. Veer suddenly got friends. So Veer really wants to be there. It's almost Hellraiser-esque, this bit. And she's awake. So bear in mind that as she's a latent telepath, she's probably interacting with that in a different way to most people. So the second in command of the IPX expedition, and he's just noticed that he's being stared at by rather a lot of people, for no apparent reason. Awkward. Hello. Now it's just creepy. He's being accused of not going fast enough that he has to make it work, which is interesting. And now he's probably freaked out. So they've been going for 5 days now. She's basically saying it'll take as long as it takes, because that's how science works. But interestingly, because Sheridan's wife was also a xenoarchaeologist, he knows roughly where they ought to be up to by now. There's been a 30% increase in violent activity since it arrived. So Sheridan's just called her on the fact that the hieroglyphics on it are Vorlon, which of course he would know. So now he's demanding a summary from her, because he knows damn well that she ought to have known that, and therefore she's holding back, basically. Naughty. It's Juice, yeah. Hello, Juice. Juice was trying to go for a walk out the airlocks, apparently. That's not ideal. Apparently the artifact is calling him. So he refers to the city that she's seen, and of course he's seen as well. He says that they belong to them, and they have to open the door for them. Zack is not impressed. Ivanova's actually avoiding what Zack's saying about the city, so she's avoiding the question, even though she knows damn well what Juice was talking about. Interesting. She's very keen to keep control of it and keep it out of Sheridan's hands, that's for sure. So it seems that it needs external power to get it working, but the connections have been severed on purpose, given its power loss when it was drifting in hyperspace. He's not sure they should do it, but she wants a big power cell used to try and boost it. So the Doctor is now explaining that she thinks it's some sort of jump gate that doesn't open into normal space or hyperspace, but into a different sort of space, which she names Thirdspace. She also does a bit of exposition on the Centauri giving Earth jump gates, but the Centauri not being responsible for actually constructing them in the first place, which of course we know. She thinks in Thirdspace travel will be even faster than it is in hyperspace, which of course would be so it would basically mean that you could vastly expand vastly faster, jumping from A to B straight away. Also very useful tactically. But interestingly, the second in command very sensibly asks how come it ended up in hyperspace, because if it were a weapon and somebody managed to knock it out, wouldn't they have taken it for themselves? His name's Bill. So he's finally agreed to do what she's asked him to do, because he said that they both needed to agree. He's still not quite sure though. They're saying that he saw Ivanova in a dream, which is good luck for his people. And they've both seen the same city, of course. They says that she was eaten by something nasty. Now she thinks they have a problem with the artifact. No kidding. Unfortunately, the energy cell is now in the plug socket, despite Ivanova not having authorised it. And the worker bee guys thought that she had authorised it, but of course she hasn't, and now hell's about to break loose, quite possibly, quite literally. Everyone's got faraway looks in their eyes, even the Minbari. That's not good. Ivanova was trying to get him out of there, but unfortunately it's far too late. Ooh. Splat. And now it's wake up time. Now it's got a big glowing artifact in space. Some people are still with it, others are just transfixed. The game. The Furies can't launch, so there's no power to the bay doors, so they're stuffed. Zack's trying to get stuff under control. It's turned into a fist fight. Now the artifact is draining power from the station, given that it's now got more power to do so itself. It's a good point actually. Shonus is making the point that if they lose the travel tubes, then they won't be able to get around because the place is so big that doing it on foot just won't do it. So Zack's trying to keep going hand to hand to avoid killing anyone, but it's not exactly ideal. He thinks they're under some sort of telepathic influence, he's probably not far off. If one of us wondering what this the artifact is powering back up 4 exactly. Sheridan's off to see Lita as well. Looks like company's coming. Cobra Bays are finally open. And happily, the Furies just drop out. They don't actually need to do anything powered. Once the doors are open, they can just go. And somebody just killed somebody on the IPX team. There you go, the Furies. But they've got to hang back so they don't get depowered. So they're just hoping that their cumulative fire will have some sort of effect even at long range. And Glenn figured out the same thing as John did. He's in Volon mode. The door is opening apparently. And the artifact's powered up. And it's opening up. Okay, it's a transformer. It's just saying she's an echoer warning. Generational memory. She calls it their great mistake. The Volon's great mistake. It says the big mistake was the error of pride. So basically the Volons thought they could handle it and they couldn't. So the Volons began to believe that they were gods because of the way the younger races treated them. And they decided that they actually belonged somewhere else in a higher plane. So they put all their knowledge into building this gate to Thirdspace. But they forgot that the door may swing in 2 directions. They were so busy thinking about getting out and trying to find God that they forgot that something else might be waiting on the other side to come into their space. Which is what's happening right now. It's a jump point, but not as we know it. No idea who this Starfray pilot is, by the way. Possibly the Kefir of his day. Company's coming. It's a beachhead. Ooh, she just called them anti-life. Older than the Volons. Very telepathic. And the gate boosts their telepathy. And they actually got control of Volons. But the Volons who were mind controlled by them took the gate into hyperspace and hid it from the other Volons. So they couldn't destroy it. They're basically genocidal guys. So they just destroyed thousands of races in their own universe. So slightly Borg-esque, really. Good point, Glenn. Why can't they make a gate from their side? But apparently it has to be open on both sides. So if you shut your end, then they can't get through. Sheridan asks how they can be destroyed. Lita says learn. It's a classic Volon transfer process, that. So interestingly, these guys, these Thirdspace aliens, have obviously got shield tech, which doesn't normally exist in the Babylon 5 universe. So that sort of effect you don't normally see. They seem to be lobbing plasma bolts of some description. Interesting, he calls Lita it rather than her initially. Probably because she was in Volon mode initially, I suppose. That might have been accurate. He says that was just one of many mistakes. So many. And she's gone bye-bye again. We'll have a quick on the draw there. So it was her second who took the shot, it appears. The Doctor's not being overly helpful about what Ivanova was asking her to try and help with the artefact. John's asking Ivanova to command the White Stars because the Glenn's going to bring in some Minbari war cruisers. And Susan's just twigged where the guy was shot. Because she said that she shot him when he was coming towards her, but he's been shot in the back. Oh, he went hand to hand with Ivanova. That was unwise. He's got 2 hours of energy left. Sheridan's going EVA. He's got that look on his face. It can only mean one thing. Yes, it's nuke time, everybody. He loves his nukes. He's got a bit of a nuke issue. His password is Abraxas79713. Hello, I'd like a small tactical nuclear device, please. In a handy briefcase. Thank you. We've never known there were nukes on board Babylon 5 before, I don't think. I think they're overkilling it on the number of ships, but anyway. Company's coming. Ivana was telling them to target the front of the artifact only, for reasons that will presumably become apparent. Here comes John, he's got a funky jetpack. Woohoo! So here we go. We've got to have a big epic showdown battle. It's a movie after all. Now this bit is a little bit silly. Not this bit, I'll tell you when. So you put a bloke in a spacesuit, completely unshielded, with high energy particle weapons shooting all around him. He will be irradiated to hell and back, surely to God. Come on. Somebody tell me he won't be. Plus, the enemy ships aren't going to avoid him. Quite frankly, why would they? So, shed loads of hand-to-hand combat going on. Franklin's still trying to be a doctor in the middle of it all, but... Flaming Fisted Narn. Doesn't seem to be bothering him overly much. Now Veer's gone psycho. Nice. So Ivanova's... The Starfighters complain they can't actually do anything worth a damn, and Ivanova's saying this is just the first wave, so they've got to keep it up regardless. But they've got to keep targeting the front of the artifact. Sheridan's just said that he has to be out of his mind. It would be hard to disagree at this point, because his survival odds have to be pretty low. So he's going to scoot around the back of it, which is a cunning plan. So Ivanova's basically telling them if they've got a clear shot of the energy field to take it now. See, they're trying to pull power around the front so it reinforces itself at the front, not at the back. Which might just give you-know-who an opening. Reminds me a little bit of the Star Trek The Motion Picture. It lends in one of the Minbari cruisers in their control rooms. That's where she's got a big holographic display behind her. White Star's going toe-to-toe. Not sure who won that. So this apparently was a mix of CGI, but when he lands, it goes to a real set, basically, at one point. Not just yet. But for the time, this was really good, especially the animation on the actual his CGI version. Pretty good. So obviously now it's a real set. Here's this friendly nuke. Why he stops to sightsee at this point, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. There's clearly no artificial gravity in here, incidentally. Well, I'm saying there isn't. But I don't think his jetpack would work in normal gravity, one would assume, so... Yep, company's coming. Why keeps looking up? It's not like he can hear anything. It's a weird perspective. Presumably he's sort of seeing what's in third space, heading for their jump point. 5 minutes. Chop chop jump. One of us White Star has seen better days. Assuming they've got a screen left. Uh-oh, big guns. You would think, wouldn't you, they send their biggest ship in first? That's what I'd do, personally, but anyway. You see the reflection of the creature, CGI creature in his helmet there, which is clever. This is the Cthulhu-esque thing, squiddy thing. Oh, that's how he does it. So he tells the flight system to navigate it back along the path it came at top speed, so he's not actually steering. It's automatic. That's actually a good point. Surely it would be getting sucked of its energy. I'm guessing he actually took a different path at this point just to try and get himself clear. Oop. Nasty. Nasty flying tentacle of doom. Apparently. And lots of teeth, of course. Close. Sheldon gives the run away order. Run away, run away. Here she blows. You'd have thought if they were that smart, they'd have realised what that was by now. But anyway, there you go. Kaboom. Kaboom. And yes, it shouldn't be that noisy in space. I know. See, more radiation. Hello. He's going to glow in the dark. You might argue, perhaps, that his Lorien's resuscitation methodology might protect him from heavy radiation. I don't know. Or maybe his suit is shielded to some extent. I guess you'd have to have some shielding in space. What's going on? Funny. So Veer's been out of it since the transport tube with Ivanova, apparently. So he's wondering why he's standing there hitting Zack, or being hit by Zack. Sheridan's just out of fuel, basically, and he's asking Glenn to pick him up, but she might be busy, she thinks, so she thinks it's hilarious, him not so much. So there we go, it's quite an action-packed little film as they go, and apparently had a bigger budget than average for it. She's all remorseful now, bless her. I don't think she was under the influence of that thing at all. She was just being greedy. She does cough up what she's got in the artifact. Sheridan says maybe it's a learning experience. And Sheridan says that all learning experiences are painful, apparently. Hero's walking shot. So they're not telling everyone the whole truth about it, basically. Because they think it's better off that way. He just says again, one mistake out of so many others. Whereas Sheridan thought it would just be this one time, but I think Lita would have something else to say on that matter. So there you go. I mean, it's a pretty solid film, actually, in fairness. It's a pretty solid film. It's just strange that they just took so long to make these. I would have thought they'd have tried to do them much earlier, but I suppose when they were trying to do the series at the same time, it would be too much drain on the resources to do them both simultaneously, so they had to do it afterwards. But I guess it allowed them to do things like these DVD box sets and so on, and sort of have something else in the universe to sell to other networks. So it makes perfect sense in that sense, I guess. Just a shame we didn't see a bit more. I mean, obviously there's nothing to stop them doing it again in the cinema at some point, apart from the fact that sadly a lot of the original cast have passed away now. But we may well still get this reboot that's been bandied about at the moment, so we'll see how that goes. But I think that's me done for this one now. So I'm just getting into the final credity bit. It's interesting. It's still a Babylonian production, obviously, but it's still a Warner Brothers production as well. So even though it's TNT distributing, I think it's still sort of Warner Brothers ownership at the end of the day. So I hope that was of some use to you. I mean, it's kind of hard to commentate as you go through because this is a very much a sort of standalone thing that's removed from the normal sequence of events that are going on in the series. Although there are references to things like the station needing supplies because it's been quarantined by Earth and so on. So it fits perfectly well in the sort of the overall chronology and the logic of the season that it's set into. But obviously it's designed as a standalone piece, so it doesn't go into that much detail about the overall background of what's happening in the series. A little bit of exposition. I think the bit about Lita is really interesting because we didn't have a lot of background detail. She gave a verbal explanation of the fact that she'd gone to the Vorlon system to try and get picked up by them, which we know she then was, and she was then modified. But this is the first time we've actually seen a sort of a rendition of that on screen, so that was quite nice to see. Not something you might have expected perhaps in this one, but it's the advantage of it being done by the people who normally do the series, because obviously they were able to drop details like that in. I think that's the sort of thing that JMS would have put into the books and things like that to sort of expand the universe more. But that's why it's worth watching them, because you do get additional detail on the universe from watching the films like this. So I'm going to go off and try and edit this down for you now, and I will probably get it up hopefully at the same time as or maybe slightly before my next normal weekly episode release. I'm just trying to keep myself on target. So thanks for listening, and I'll catch you for the next one.